All right, welcome to class number 10. So this is what we're going to be covering, and so on and so forth. So landing page. Landing page basically means when someone types in your address, where they land. So really what that means is it's your home page. Okay, so that's your landing page. Sometimes they'll say landing page, sometimes they'll say home page. We usually say home page when we're doing other stuff, but for whatever reason, we're just going to call it your landing page. Okay, so what's really important when you do create a landing page is that the main thing is it's supposed to draw your users into your site. They should go to the landing page and then want to know more, right? So it's the same thing as if you see the cover of a comic book or magazine or just a book or a movie. That needs to be something that's going to draw the person in to want to purchase, want to explore, learn more about it. All right, so typically what you normally see is a heavy use of imagery, right? Usually keep it really simple. Usually, very often, it's a big picture or a couple of big pictures and very limited text, okay? So that's normally what you want. When we're in WordPress, the way that we set this up is that you have to go to the settings and then reading. And then in reading, you would just choose a static post page, and then you choose home page, which you've already done. So on and so forth. Okay, so that's pretty good. It is possible to use the customize option inside of WordPress in order to basically further add changes and stuff to the look of your theme. It's theme specific, but I already covered that in tutorial stuff, so I'm not going to really cover that or this right now. The thing I do want to talk about is usability. So when we're talking about usability, it's actually very similar to a printed page, right? Which most of the time, if you're creating graphic design elements, you're usually thinking about a printed page. And the main thing is usually is legibility, the ability of the page to be comprehended by whoever's reading it, right? So, you need titles to be big and be able to be readable. You need large bodies of text to be readable. You need the images to be clear, things like that. Web has the same goal, but also has a concern about usability, which is more or less the experience of the user when they're using your page. And what that means is that, if they're on your website, they need to be able to read it, but they also need to be able to navigate it, right? So you can get really creative with your nav bar or your navigation. I've seen some really interesting, cool ones out there, but the problem is that it doesn't necessarily make it usable. It might make it less usable, and it hinders the experience of the user. So what you want to do is just make sure that most of the time you want to keep things very standard because people will have already learned that and be able to understand it, right? So some considerations is learning. User understands the content of the site and grasps the concepts. Efficiency, making sure that they're able to utilize it in a quick and efficient way. You want them to you want it to be memorable when they're done. You want to make sure that there are few errors. If the experience, if they're going to click on things that are not working, there's a certain amount of error that a user is willing to deal with. Most of the time, it's not very high. And then the overall satisfaction. Some other things you got to think about are dimensions. So obviously, if you're doing something that's on a printed page, you know exactly what the size of that is. But in this case, dimensions could widely change, right? Depending on the user screen, whether they're on mobile or on a desktop, or whether they're landscape or portrait. All of that makes a big difference. Some of the content that goes in there is going to be different than what you would see with a printed page. So a header, right? That's not too much different, but navigation's definitely different. Links are different. The content's generally the same. There might be login stuff. Again, that's not in a printed thing. Forms, comments, legal. These are just different elements that you would have to deal with. That if it's a web document as opposed to just a document that you have to deal with and think about when you're creating it. And then navigation, you want your navigation to be concise, should be easy to read, right? You don't want to have a big long, like your menu item shouldn't be big long lines. You want to think of like one, maybe two words. Should be clear so that you know where that link is going to go specifically. Should only contain links, so don't put other information in there. And limit the number of links that you use as well. Don't try to put as few links as possible. If you have like just a whole long list of links across, it becomes too many choices. context. You should know where they currently are. So mine doesn't actually have this, but I have this up here that kind of tells you where you're at. But a lot of times what you'll see with certain navigation, they'll actually, like so this is my main nav bar. This would actually be like highlighted a different color, so you know, oh, I'm in web design. That's a really common thing for people to do. They'll make it active, if you will. Interactive should be large enough for the user to obviously respond to hover and press and visited and the various things. And make sure it's consistent. You don't want the navigation to be different on each page. It should be like, generally, most of the time we just do this horizontal bar at the top. And it's good if it's the same on every single page. It's just like if you're, reading a book, right? You want every page to look the same, right? You don't want like if they have the title like on a footer on the bottom, you want to make sure that it's the title on all the pages, because if suddenly it isn't, they might get confused, right? Or you want to have page numbers always in the top right. You don't want to put it in the top right and then later on put it in the bottom left. Like that would be confusing for the viewer, okay? So the next assignment this week is to basically complete the homepage. And once you get the homepage done, it's kind of like when you do the homepage for manually coding. You can use that as kind of a guide to build out the rest of your site. You can just follow these tutorials here. So you might be farther along than this. This is just the general local site setup. This is the actually these are going to be different. This is the local site setup, and then I'm going to have another one that's like going to be the page, and then how to save it and export it. Okay, so they'll just follow these tutorials. They should guide you. Some of them might be a little bit redundant, but just follow them anyway. All right, and that's it. So good luck.